So, patrons, y'all have put me in kind of a tough spot. Okay. Friends and family of Cardivox Academy, Mark here, and today we're doing another Patreon pick, getting kind of caught up from the holidays here, and we're checking out Fleshgod Apocalypse, The Violation, and I'm excited because I have heard this song before. It was when it came out, like 10 years ago. This video was posted 10 years ago, so the album must have come out around that time, so we're just gonna say 10 years ago. I remember having mixed feelings about this song, so it'll be kind of fun. It'll be kind of fun doing it. But they have voted, they have nominated, and I shall respond in kind. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name is Mark. I am a metal vocalist in 3 bands: Kardashev, Neverbreath, and Viremia. Kardashev's the only one that's really doing anything right now. And I'm also a vocal coach. I specialize mostly in harsh vocals. So, guttural, false chordy, fry, high, gurgly, Satan toilet bowl sounds. But I do dip into clean singing myself as well. And I know that this band has a little bit of that. So we're going to talk about it. Now, the cool thing about it is, like I said, this is a video over here. There it is. That was voted on by our patrons. Our patrons get to vote on, nominate and vote on one video a month. Plus, we have an awesome Discord. We've got events every month where we hang out, or we have like vocalist themed events as well that involve talking about vocals, running through warm-ups together, things like that. It's a lot of fun. And we also have a winner of a raffle just by being in the Discord, just by participating. That's all you got to do. They win vocal evaluations and even lesson packs with me. And our winner right now for this video is Nathan, aka Brother Nathan, aka Rar I'm a Bear. Nathan's been a fan of the channel for a very long time. It's going to be a lot of fun having some time to work on vocals together. And for anybody curious, because remember the last winner was Brother Kane, and now it's Brother Nathan. I don't know. I don't remember how this happened, but like it became a thing on our Discord where everybody started putting brother in front of their name. I don't know why. So there's like Brother Mark, Brother Alex, Brother Marley, Brother Kane, Brother Bear. It's pretty funny. So Kane, good job. Not Kane. Nathan, good job. We'll have our vocal evaluation set up, and we'll get cracking on some cool stuff. So I think that's about all we need. Without further ado, I'm squishing this video between 2 lessons, so I gotta move fast. But without further ado, let's go ahead and let's check out Fleshgod Apocalypse. Fleshgod Apocalypse, The Violation. I'm a little nervous to do this one, I'm not gonna lie. But we're gonna do it. Here we go. All right, I know I'm stopping at kind of a weird spot, but the song is like nonstop. So yeah, so far, this is all the stuff I love about this song. I will be honest with all of you. I think sometimes slapping symphonic on a song doesn't necessarily make it better. Sometimes it just means your band member on keyboards knows how to go through arpeggios really fast, and like that's a cool skill, I guess. I can't do that, but here and with Fleshgod's greater work, I think it works very well. I love the way it sounds. Now, I'm not too familiar with the band members themselves, but I know that at least some of them. Alex gave me a brief of the band members like 2 weeks ago, so of course I don't remember anything. But I know that some of them are quite educated in music and in their instruments, right? And it shows. You know, I am not a classical composer. You know, I have never written a song entirely by myself. I've always done it in a concept of the band that I'm in, but I hear a lot of intentional movement in the song. It doesn't sound like somebody's just throwing arpeggios over music. Everything's working together cohesively. And if I remember correctly, their guitarist / screamer, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, taught himself to play drums either for this album or for a couple albums just because they needed a drummer. And if he just self-taught himself to do this to fill a role, dude is nuts. Like, I am not that talented. So first of all, just kind of shout out to that. Compositionally, I really love this song. It's a lot of fun. I love when those blast beats kick in. I love that those blast beats kicked in not with like a long held out high. Nothing wrong with that. We've all done it. Gets a little tired sometimes. However, the lows here have a really cool, like kind of old school vibe to them, right? This is very like Corpse Grinder. I'm not saying it sounds exactly like Corpse Grinder, but in the delivery, it's very Corpse Grindery, kind of Death Clock, right? Kind of has like a Death Clock vibe. I can't remember the vocalist character's name in that, but it's this very like kind of breathy, low, barky, like right, and that's a very fundamental false chord sound. Right? That's the dog bark. That's the exasperated sigh with a little bit of compression added. That's the throat singing. Some people utilize throat singing to learn false chords. I have found that a mixed bag. I use it with some students, but with others, the approach of distortion then removal of vocal folds is just really tough for some people. So I know it's a popular method, but if it's not working for you, there are other ways. But basically the way that people do that is they find their throat singing and then they remove the vocal folds, start kind of breathing through it, and you have a false chord there. His sound awesome. I love the layering. I love the production. It's very barky and it's very strong, right? There is nothing here where I feel like he's disconnected or squeezing from his throat. It's really good. I actually want to go back and hear a little bit of it because, like I said, the song is nonstop. I'm not really sure like the best places to pause. So there's a glass of wine. This looks like as good a spot as any. You know, there's some other really cool stuff going on too. So a lot of times people, sometimes my students and sometimes other people, they'll be like, oh, I don't really like that, like more like old school type of sound. Old school, it's only 10 years ago, because there's not a lot of nuance to it. But if you listen, you can hear him on certain sounds tucking his resonance up more into the front of his face, right? So we have our like, so he's doing these subtle movements just with the lips and the tongue, right? And I think that a lot of times when we're trying to add variety to our voice, we can think just about minor changes to it. Oftentimes in vocals, we think about the most exaggerated things we can do. And that makes sense. Let's face it. It's kind of a maximal style. There's not a lot of like subtlety to screaming, right? But at the same time, you can add some subtlety. Not every change you have to make has to be from like you don't always have to be that dramatic with it. You can and you should because it sounds cool. But I like the subtleties he's adding there. It's a music video, so I'm sure he's lip syncing. I'm not calling anybody out. That's 90% of the time how music videos work. But the shape of his mouth seems to be very representative to what you would actually want to do, right? When holding out a longer scream and you want it to have a wide sound, kind of opening, pulling the lips away from the teeth, versus you get different amplifications, you get different colors and textures in the voice that are really valuable. Now, sometimes people who do a lot of false chord sounds will have difficulty holding the tones out. And there's a level of inevitability to that, right? You're never gonna, I don't wanna say never, but it's uncommon for people to hold pure false chord sounds for long periods of time. It's a very breath heavy vocal style. Also, the lawn is being mowed outside, so if y'all hear that, I'm sorry. But most of the time when we're doing false chords, it's a lot of air holding on to the distortion. So there are a couple things that we can do. One is we add a little bit of compression to that sound, right? And you can hear the change. What I'm doing is I'm bringing in my arytenoid cartilages above the vocal folds, right? And basically the way that I do that, this is kind of tricky for a lot of people to learn. It's usually one of the things that my students need the most hands-on help with. But one of the ways, not the way, but one of the ways to do that is to go from screaming in your normal voice, ha, ha, right? I'm not using my vocal folds, but that's the position of my body, ha, ha, to more of a ha, Pee Wee Herman, ha, 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 ha. That'll add a little bit of compression because that voice, you don't want to use the vocal folds, but that encourages the arytenoids to come together. We'll talk more about holding out tones because we got a lot more song. And like I said, I got a lesson in 15 minutes, so I got to be quick. But let's keep going. Let's go ahead. We'll talk more about holding screams longer here in a second. Yeah. Now that was an important section because it sounded as if he lifted he made it a little higher, right? He sort of brightened that timbre, brought the scream sort of from the back of the mouth up onto like the roof of the mouth. If I was to do it with my voice, it would sound kind of like that. No, where was he? There we go. Right? So he brightened things up. Then at the end of the phrase, he drops back down again to create contrast. That's another way you can add nuance and variety to, the same technique. Slightly change where you place it so that when you do change, the contrast is brighter. If you do a lot of phrase work here, then when you do drop down, it's going to be fairly obvious. Let's keep going. So, patrons, y'all have put me in kind of a tough spot. Okay. So, very rarely in my videos do I point out things that I don't think are going well. Usually my approach to these reaction videos is to find the better parts and explain like that. Like point you down the road you should go versus pointing out all the things that are wrong. I think sometimes I could be a little bit more critical. I'll finish a video and I'll be like, I played the positive angle a little too much. Maybe I should have pointed out these things that weren't going so well. But, I like I don't know any of them as people, but I assume I would like them and I like their band. However, I think, and this is my opinion here, I think that a lot of that singing got away from him. I do. Now, Essentially what was happening is, and let's be clear, all of us are going to have times when our voices get away from us, right? I don't want to be disingenuous here and create the illusion that I have never strained a high note, that I have never flubbed or my voice is cracked. In fact, usually in these videos, when I do make a mistake, I try to just keep them in so we all understand that we're all human. However, the decision to do this singing and keep this singing is one that I find a bit confusing, right? Essentially what's happening here is when he started, his voice sounded pretty strong. There sounded to me throughout the entire thing to be too much squeeze in the glottis, the vocal folds being squeezed together. That's interesting to me because in the lower parts, right, it sounded like he would normally be comfortable with that. Oftentimes when we're going to approach high notes, and I've experienced this, I have felt this before, I know that for me, my voice type, my range, I know that like A4 is coming. And so I get nervous where I would normally be comfortable, like below like the F sharp 4. That's where my break tends to live. My passaggio, if you want to call it that, where I switch from chest voice to head voice naturally, right? Is F4, F sharp 4. That's very common for a lot of people with vocal folds the same shape and size as mine, right? Or of a similar shape and size. Now, that being said, I might have to pick up the second half of this reaction video later because there's a lot to talk about and I've only got 10 minutes. That being said, what's happening here is he's trying to carry the connectivity of his chest voice over his bridge, over his vocal break. When we do that, oftentimes people will refer to that as mixing, using our mix voice, where we have the sound of our chest voice in the space of our head voice. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into terminology because honestly, it's a really confusing landscape. What a lot of people call head voice, other people call falsetto. What a lot of people call falsetto, other people call mix, and it can be really confusing. So for the sake of understanding in this video, I want you to think of your voice having gears. And this is not my analogy. This analogy has been used by vocal coaches and choir directors all over the world for longer than I've been alive, I'm sure. But I want you to think of your voice as having gears, okay? And I use this a lot with my students. Let's say you're riding your bike up a hill, right? And you're struggling. And then you think to yourself, oh, I've got a bike with gears. You change from one gear to another. All of a sudden, it's a lot easier. That's what happens naturally in our voice. Our vocal folds, when we're changing pitch, when we're moving through the places of our voice, they change shape, right? They get longer, they get thinner. And oftentimes that transition isn't smooth. It's not like a rubber band where you pull it all smooth, not naturally anyway. You can train it to be that way. And so when you pull it, rather than going, ooh, you heard it, right? Ooh. There are many different ways to bridge or to get over that smoothing out the passaggio, right? That's not as much of my expertise because in the genre of music that I've been in, I've never had nor wanted to do that. The vocal break has been useful to me throughout my career. However, singing above the break, a lot of what we're going to need with that is solid breath support. That's the low-hanging fruit of advice, so I'm getting that out of the way first. The proper resonance space. And this is the key. This 90% of the time is what people need to work on when they're struggling with higher notes. Relaxation in the throat. That is maybe more important than anything. Now, compositionally, if you are a singer, it is important to understand and to know your voice really well. For example, with me, we'll figure this out in a second. Like I said, I'm going to have to finish this video up after my lessons. So in a couple hours, I'll pause it and then I'll pick it up later. But for me, my voice, let me find it because I don't have like perfect pitch. I can't just like hear a note and be like, oh, that's a F sharp 6, right? That's not how my ear works. So for me, it tends to be things get a little difficult after like a G sharp. Right. So when I'm writing songs, and this is not just me, this is not like some secret. Plenty of vocalists do this. Unless I feel really confident, I kind of avoid those higher notes. And I have to warm up into them, right? So oftentimes I'll jump a fifth. I think that's a perfect fifth. Yo, whoa! yeah, yeah. Now notice when I'm hitting that high note, I'm like almost smiling, like that smiley face emoji. Yeah, yeah. Like, let's see, it was a little voice break. No big deal, right? That took a long time for me to be able to do. Some people it's longer, some people it's shorter. And I think that what was happening, I think he was like up, we'll listen to it again. If I remember the song correctly, it happens again. I want to say he was like, was it E5? No. D5, D sharp 5, E5, somewhere around in there. We'll listen to it again and I'll find it. I feel like what was happening is he was thinking about the resonance, thinking about the breath support, but just absolutely cranking down on his throat. Now, on the off chance that he sees this, maybe he'll correct me. That's what I heard. That's what it sounded like. So let's go ahead and let's pause it here. When we start the video back up, what I'll do is I will focus on advice for newer singers on hitting high notes. And then I'll give some of my own stories because I never want to create the illusion that I'm like, and this does happen sometimes. I was on TikTok once and somebody disagreed with me in a comment and somebody replied like, are you actually challenging Mark? And I was like, oh no, that is not the persona I want to have. I am fallible. So I'll tell you some stories of where I've messed up too, where I've absolutely had horrible performances because that's part of the journey. So we're going to pause it right here. To you all in YouTube land, it's just going to look like a hard cut. And then we're going to go from there. So Ludo, do your magic. All right. And we're back. It is 3 hours later. I just finished 3 lessons in a row and I had a snack. So I'm feeling fresh. Little toast, some butter, some honey, some salt, little drizzle of chili oil. Perfection. So I tried to get the lighting and everything as close as it was before, but sorry if it looks a little janky. Anyway, so where we left off, I was talking a little bit about ways that we can reach high notes, and B, some of the times that I've experienced, difficulty hitting high notes as well. So first bit of advice for hitting high notes for new singers is to not worry about it for a while, really. And this may be the advice that you don't want to hear, but usually when we're doing things such as range extension, what's actually happening is you're accessing parts of your voice that you already had. It's not that you necessarily extended your range a lot of the time. It's simply that now you know how to access parts of your voice that you would know how to access with proper technique, right? Where are you placing the resonance? How are you supporting the breath with the abdominals? Are you sort of like seated into your support, right? Are you kind of standing all weird? Or are you sort of, if you've got a little bit of a curl, are you a little bit seated? Does it feel like you're sort of like sitting on your support? Is your throat super relaxed? Do you understand the different amount of air and pressure that's used for high notes and low notes and things? What's the best way to learn that? Start with your chest voice. Start with a comfortable voice with that tessitura, as they call it. Sit down, figure out your range, which is not the same as your vocal type. It's not one and the same, right? If you don't know how to do that, reach out to a coach who can help you do that. Either me or somebody else. If they're doing a style that's more what you want to do, go with them. If I'm doing more what you want to do, go with me or whoever you want. But find your range and find where you're comfortable. For a lot of people, such as myself, that's going to be where you start. Again, with the vocal folds of a similar shape and size to me, that's going to be, around the 3rd octave, up slightly into the 4th, right? And just learn kind of what your voice feels like. Yo, lo, 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 lo. What does this feel like? La, 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 la. Just get comfortable there. Then, once you have a strong handle of your chest voice, you can start doing other things. You'll hear multiple definitions around the interwebs of belting. And, I'm not the kind of person who thinks that there's only one. Sometimes there's only one. But for me, I think of belting as being the sensation of carrying the sound and connectivity of your chest voice over your vocal break in a way that's still efficient, right? So again, for me, and you can kind of hear it, like I don't have my fancy stuff set up from before I moved, but for me, that happens, my voice breaks around an F4 and F sharp 4. And that gives that like, that gives you that little yodel. That's an F4. So what happens if I want to sing a G4? But I don't want that sound. I don't want that light. I don't want that light, airy sound. Well, what I'm going to do is after I've figured out how to hold on to my chest voice, there are many ways to go about this. This is just a quick little thing. What you can do is you can use, I always get these confused. It's either a fifth or a perfect fifth, but you can use this small little jump. It's a very recognizable sound. So here we're going C4 to G4, right? Sorry, I don't have, something better set up, but this is what I got. And we start comfortable. So here we are. Yo, that's my C4. And we're going to slide up to our target note, which for us right now is a G4. And I know my voice, so I know that I'm going to keep it there, right? And then I'm going to slide up to that note and I'm going to try to carry that sound of relaxation. And I'm going to do so with the feeling of squeezing my abdominal muscles lightly and feeling downward pelvic floor pressure, just a little bit. Melissa Cross calls this the dump for obvious reasons, right? So I'm here. Yo, whoa, yo, whoa, yo, whoa, yo, whoa. Now that G4, we know is above my vocal break. Now I'm mostly a screamer, right? I sing a little bit, but I mostly am a screamer. But here, yeah, that is a way to get above the vocal break. And you can hear, now listen, I'm not even going to attempt to hit the notes that he's hitting in a full voice. So again, I don't want it to seem like I'm putting myself above him or anything. I'm sticking to where I'm comfortable. But you can hear that even though I'm projecting, I'm loud, I'm starting to approach that belting territory. It doesn't sound like I'm not doing this. Yo, ho, right? I'm not screaming it out. Yo, whoa, yeah, whoa, whoa. I'm relaxing. Now, sometimes, I know I'm talking a lot, but I think there's a lot of valuable stuff to be said here. Sometimes professional musicians, I have experienced this, will have times where they're in the studio and they're tired. They're exhausted. I've experienced this. Hell, on the album that we have coming out sometime, I'm not allowed to say, you might hear a section where I'm reaching a little bit because I was like 6 hours in and I was exhausted and we were on a deadline and I said, screw it, print money. I'm done doing this. Was that the right choice for me in that moment? Probably not. But, getting kind of back to, again, we're all human, we're all fallible. But the singing here sounds like it was built mostly on glottal pressure with a lot of shoved air through the throat and squeezing of the vocal folds. This is the last thing I'll say, and then I'll keep going. It's just, there's so much on this topic that we could go on about. Part of the reason people will squeeze their throat to hit high notes is because when we are making that break, right? When our vocal folds are switching gears from that chest voice to that head voice, right? To that lighter, airier sound. And again, falsetto, head voice, a lot of different people use these terms differently. So please, I'm using this broadly. Our vocal folds are blowing apart a little bit, right? There's a little bit more of like this breathiness. And so what's a good way to hold things together? To literally hold them together, right? However, when we do this, what's going to happen is we're going to be straining and pushing the vocal folds together, and they're in a way that they don't like, right? It's going to cause the connection to be, it's going to cause the vocal folds to be connected, sure, but your muscles are going to get tired. And then when your muscles get tired, that connection is going to deteriorate. And what's one of the biggest causes of vocal damage? Irregular vocal fold connection, right? When it comes down to like vocal nodules and polyps and hemorrhages and things like that, one of the main things that happens that causes that is instead of having an even, because your vocal folds, if we were to zoom in on the edges, they kind of do this, right? Rather than an even vibration, it's kind of like slapping. You can hear these slapping motions. Imagine that on the thin membrane of your vocal folds. Not good, right? So wrapping this all up, if you want to hit high notes, first of all, stop caring about high notes. Develop your comfortable voice first, learn proper technique, then carry that proper technique up to your vocal break, up to your bridge, get comfortable there. Get comfortable there. A lot of people will call this mixed voice more over our bridge. That's a whole nother can of worms. But get comfortable with your voice first, then think about getting over the bridge. And maybe even train your chest, then get comfortable with a falsetto. You don't have to be beautiful at it. You don't have to be like a pro falsetto guy, like that guy on TikTok who's like beautiful voice, right? But just getting comfortable with these things and putting them together. Okay, that's enough talking from me. Let's go back. Actually, let's just pick it up here. I never noticed that the first time I listened to this, and I've seen this music video again when it came out 10 years ago. I've seen this music video a couple times, but it sounded like the pianist was in the back doing something. Let me hear that one more time. What was he doing? It sounded like he was just speaking in a really nasal voice. Hey, our Inquisition is coming. I forgot the lyrics. To something your life. Hey, our Inquisition. It sounded kind of cool. It sounded like kind of an interesting choice. It sounded almost like a loudspeaker, right? It sounded like, somebody speaking to like in movies when you see people in the prison yard and then they're like, Gen Pop time is over or whatever they say. Kind of sounded like that. Odd choice. Didn't sound bad. Just a little strange. So it sounded like we switched into a slightly different placement on the highs. Also, I thought it was really cool in that solo when he starts like really shredding, like rocking those arpeggios. The snare kind of slows down to let the guitar shine. I never noticed that either, but that's really cool. Let me see if I can find those high vocals again. Also, this dude beating up his buddy with a violin case or maybe a viola case. I don't know. That's hilarious. I love that. Yeah, so this is a kind of a good place for us to talk a little bit about registers a little bit more, right? So he had like this, right? Like we talked about, and then he had more of a, right? So what's exactly going on there? What's exactly going on in this placement? Well, we can approach this distortion in a couple of different ways. Some people call that fry, some people call it false chord. I'm not going to really worry about that today. Because honestly, sometimes I just, to have a moment of transparency with you, sometimes my least favorite part of the job is definition wars. It's important, but it just kind of tires me out. It kind of tires me out. So if I am here, let's call this let's call this our falsetto for now. So I'm here, right? I'm going to hold on to that tone, and I'm going to try to get as low as I can. And you'll hear I kind of stop, right? Now, I'd be willing to bet I barely even got more than an octave there, right? Now I'm going to let my voice flip. I'm going to let my voice break. I'm going to switch to my chest, and I'm going to drop further. Ooh, right there. Hey. I'm way lower. What does that tell us? It tells us that certain sounds are only available to us at certain places in our voice, right? Again, I don't want to confuse range and register and vocal type. They're not the same thing. They're connected, but they're not the same thing. So what if I'm here in my chest? Hey, hey, hey. And I try to do a little false chord grunt. Ha, 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 ha. I get an open false chord sound. Now, what if I kind of put my voice up a little bit? Hey, 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 hey. I haven't left, right? I'm not totally like past that bridge, but I'm just a little bit higher. Hey, hey, hey. Now you'll notice that if I hold on to that rough position, my voice kind of sounds like a little kid drinking water, right? Hey, 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 hey. What if I grunt in that space? So I'm not here. Ha, ha, I'm here. Hey, 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 hey. It allows us to access slightly different sounds. Now that distortion feels different, right? And then that's kind of where we can get into definition wars. But right here, the main thing, regardless of what you want to call it, right? The experience of doing it, the mechanics of doing it are here. Right? It's about where we are in our voice. And even though we're not using the vocal folds, right? Our larynx is in a slightly different position. Our distortion is going to follow the way that we're pointing our resonance. And he's moving that around. And it's just a kind of a cool thing to point out. So just something to think in mind. If you're having difficulty hitting a high scream, chances are you're trying to pull chest up into your head, right? So I have my false chord here. Yeah. That's a very old school false chord. Yeah. Now I'm going to try to take that feeling. That's a very chest voice feeling. And I'm going to try to pull it to the top of my head. And you'll see it doesn't work. Sounds a lot like a strained singing voice, right? What if instead I let myself ease through that space? Allow myself to, rather than hold on to this, I let myself resonate in the front a little bit more. Hey, all I did was, rather than trying to hold my resonance where it was before, which I'm doing this, but it's in the mouth. Hey, it's forward in the mouth. I let myself get a little bit nasal. Hey, wow, wow. That's a lot of what we're doing. And I am certainly not the first vocal coach to say this, and I won't be the last, but a lot of what we're doing for highs and lows are just different placed mids. If I take a guttural, it's a mid. If I take a high, it's a mid. Something to think about. Let's keep going. So far, so good. Yeah, so again, I always kind of feel bad, pointing out things I think are not being done very well. But this is and again, I'm not talking about him in his totality as a vocalist. One thing I hate is how sometimes somebody makes one mistake on the internet, a singer, and they're like, he's got bad technique. Did you hear that one show, that one time where his voice cracked? Yeah, he as a vocalist is entirely invalid. We make mistakes, folks. But I think that this would have been a good opportunity for them to maybe re-record. I have heard that in their normal music, they've brought in like a professionally trained opera singer to handle these parts. Probably a good choice. But, dude is talented in a tremendous amount of ways. And in those lower spaces, it was pretty comfortable. Don't be upset with yourself if there are high notes that you want to hit that you can't. We all have our limits, and while we can extend our voice, this is kind of an unpopular opinion, but while we can reach sections of our voice that normally we wouldn't be able to when we get a good technique going, you will have a limit. You will have a ceiling where you either have to stop or switch your voicing, change the way you're going about it. And that's okay, right? I think that's something to think about. If you disagree, feel free to let me know in the comments below. But as for my ear and from what I understand of the voice, those are my thoughts. That's my feedback on that. Ooh. Oh, like the outro of that song though is fire. Like just the fast da-da-dum, 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 and is like very loud, like he might have a little bit more compression than that actually. Yeah, I think he's more there. That sounds so cool to me. I love that. So overall, pretty good song. Couple things I would change, but great suggestion from my patrons. I think they might have heard me mention before that I had mixed feelings about this song, so they probably were purposefully putting me in a tough spot, but hopefully you enjoyed the video. Sorry again that I had to take a pause halfway through, but that was Fleshgod Apocalypse, The Violation. I should check out some of their new stuff. I should check to see what they're doing now. I think my favorite part of that song was actually the vocals. The metal vocals were great, but there was something about the drums that I found really intriguing. Really good drum work in that song. But that's enough of that. Congratulations again to Nathan for winning the vocal evaluation. Looking forward to it. Thank you again to my awesome patron/Discord community for voting on a very fun and a little tricky of a song to do. I've got one more lesson in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and prep for that. But beyond that, thank you again all so much for your time. Many thanks. Much love. I'm out.